Welcome to Unraveled Mind. My name is Antonio. I'm a certified professional coach, and I'm here with you today to talk to you about quarter life crisis. Take two. Stay tuned and let's play. I apologize for the lack of video. I'm trying something different, and also I had some problems with my my filming equipment. So this will be more in the style of a podcast, which is a little bit of how I also envision my videos as something that you can also listen just to the voice. But yeah, it will probably come back next week on the newer videos, the video component. But for now, I just wanted to not pass on the chance to record this episode and to publish it. As I said, this is my second video on the quarter life crisis topic. Last week, I released the first one where I went over my experience, how it was like for me to experience my own quarter life crisis, how I stumbled into it, what were the challenges, and more or less what I tried to do to move forward. And if you haven't, please check it out. I'll leave the link in the description. And also, in that note, I also found a video from Serena Kim. I don't know her personally, but I just found her video where she also shares her story going through quarter life crisis and how it has been challenging for her as well. And I really liked her video. So I just thought about sharing it as well and encouraging any of you who might still be interested in this topic and want to see another perspective of another person who has gone through this experience, please feel free to check it out. I also leave a link in the description. In this video, I would like to focus more on what characterizes a quarter life crisis and why does it happen? Why do a growing number of people report having experienced these challenges? And of course, what can we, and specifically you, if you are going through such a challenging period in your life, what can you try to do to help you manage and go through this period in your life and this crisis? And also for younger people that maybe they are still in school, maybe they are still in university and they haven't reached this point in their life where this tends to happen, which is mid 20s, around that time. I would also encourage you to take this episode seriously and specifically on the tips about how to handle this crisis. You can do this before it happens, and that really increases your chances of then not having to go through this challenging period because you have already done your homework and you've already prepared. So when these challenging times come, you are already empowered to maybe navigate this better and never really fall into this crisis. Just before I start, I really wanted to re-emphasize of why am I talking about this? Why do I think this is important? And the first thing I really want to bring awareness to this quarter life crisis because I don't see it being talked about in media, in social media as much as I think is necessary. Because I, talking to friends, talking to people, I see that people go through these challenges, but most often they think they are the only ones going through such a situation because they feel lost, they feel isolated, and they don't understand what's truly going on. So they have this perception that there's something wrong with me, and I want to bring awareness that no, this is something that it's common, and I really want to normalize it. I want to normalize the experience of going through a quarter life crisis because there's nothing wrong with you if you go through this experience. But also, I now looking back see that this has been a very important moment in my life. It allowed me to discover a lot of things about myself that maybe I wouldn't have been triggered to think about. And that's my goal with this video, is to help you change this challenging period in your life into a period of self-discovery, of growth, and of learning, so that you can learn from this experience. And hopefully, when you look back in the future to this time, you can think about, "Huh, this was indeed very challenging period in my life, but it was also a very defining moment. I'm really happy it happened, because I see how that shifted my life in a direction that hopefully you'll be satisfied, more satisfied in going." What is the quarter life crisis? It's a period dominated by uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty about life, about what you should be doing, about what you want to do, about where your life is going. There's a lot of uncertainty, and that brings with it a lot of insecurity. Also, because there's a lot of pressure for you to figure out your life. You should have already have these things figured out. You should know what you want. You should have now a stable job. And of course, this pressure comes from a lot of different sources. Whenever there's a family gathering, your grandparents, your uncles, your parents are going to ask you, "So how's it going with your job?" And like, you're being defined by your work, which of course it's a big part of what you do. But I think nowadays there's a little bit of more of a rebellion, that we are not only what we do for work, and that's no longer the only measure that we use to define success in our life. It's not that we only have a good job and therefore we are successful. No, we want to have also a good life that complements the work that we do. And we also have some lifestyle goals that we want to do, travel, whatever it is, having a good social life. And of course, all these doubts, all these expectations and pressures that come from external sources, but also they come from us. We also have these expectations, or at least I had a lot, that I should have already figured out these things. I should have already known what do I want out of life. I've had 20 something years to figure that out. Why am I still unsure about what I want, what I like? And yeah, it's really overwhelming when you start to think about it, because then you really don't know where to turn to and where to go, because you don't even know where you want to go. So that's, I think, the main characteristics. And of course, all these doubts, they they cause a lot of stress in you, and they can lead, and often do, to anxiety. They lead to panic attacks, to lack of engagement. You don't feel engaged in the things that you do, which leads then to also this feeling of tiredness, and not having the energy to do things, even things that might have excited you in the past, just because you feel like, why am I even doing this? What's the point? And of course, this can even lead to depression. And another characteristic that I found very interesting in myself, also in this period, was there was also a strong element of this fear of missing out, of this FOMO. I remember, just from my experiences quickly, that yeah, I was doing great. This was even before I really went into my quarter life crisis. But I was doing great. I was doing well financially as well. But I had a couple of friends that were into trading, and this was at the beginning of the cryptocurrency boom, and so they were doing well for themselves. And I just thought, maybe I should leave everything and I should do like my friends and become a trader and do some money that way. And there was just all these things of, I'm not truly sure I want to stay there just because I see this exciting thing. And of course, it's not that I truly wanted to be a trader, and that was something inherently in me. It's just this sort of, yeah, but then the money will give me the success and allow me to do whatever I want. So just long story short, I ended up investing in some cryptocurrency at the time. And this was just this was just in the beginning of 2018, if I'm not mistaken, just at the peak of the small Bitcoin bubble that then went crashing down. Of course, now it recovered, but it was just an interesting side story that I wanted to share, because sometimes there's this component of fear of missing out, because we are doing something and then we see some friend having success in another area, and maybe I should be doing this. Maybe we see a friend getting married, and maybe I should find a relationship and get married and start having kids. And all these doubts, of course, they can be good because they allow you to reflect on what you want, but they really, this fear of missing out really comes from not knowing what you truly want. So whenever there's a picture of success from another person, you think maybe this is what I should be doing, because truly you don't know. And one comes then back to this uncertainty as the defining factor. And so, what can we do about it now that we understand a little bit more of what the quarter life crisis is? And the first step, as always, in my opinion, it really helps to understand why the quarter life crisis happens, and why is it even happening more often, I would argue, these days into the younger generations. And I think, of course, there's as a complex thing that has a lot of variables that influence in different ways. But I would just like to list a few things that I think contribute to why people experience quarter life crises. And the first, and of course, this is also more optimistic, is that it's part of the process of maturity and gaining independence. It often happens when people leave university, they get their first jobs, they start getting financial independence, and it's also the process of when you're reaching the maturity of now you have responsibility for your life fully, because before you were always dependent on your parents, your family, because you were not completely financially independent, or most people wouldn't be. And I think it's part of the process, because for the first time, truly, it's all about what you want. Because in the past, as you were a child and even as a teenager, it's, of course, it's a little bit about what you want, but it's also about what your parents want, about all these expectations that others have of you, because you are in that role. And now, as you start to be more independent, you can truly be faced with, I don't no longer need to do these things this way just because that's how my family did it, or how my community in the past did it, and now I can do it my way. But that also brings the uncertainty of, but should I make that change or not? And of course, this is also part of that maturity process, as I said. And that, of course, can be a positive thing. And that's what I hope people get out of their quarter life crisis, is that they come out of it more mature and more confident in themselves, because they now know what they want. And another characteristic is really, nowadays there's too much freedom to choose, because with the internet we are really able to see we could be doing many different things. And I truly experienced this because I've always had different interests, and I always like computers, I always like psychology, I always like X. So how could I decide between one thing when so many things interest me? And that's hard. And that's, once again, that can be both good and bad, just because there's a little bit of this analysis paralysis, just because there's so much choice. And when we truly are not confident we know what we want, whenever something comes that, but I'm also interested in that, maybe I should be doing this, maybe I should be doing that, and that creates this feeling of overwhelm and this uncertainty that can then lead to this quarter life crisis. Another reason why this tends to happen is also social media. For example, it's social media, for its good and bad, it tends to project only a good image of other people's lives. And we, as social animals that we are, we, for good or for bad, we do engage in comparison. How do we compare to other people in our social group? And yeah, when we are in social media and we see our close friends now in stable jobs, getting a good income, getting promoted, the projecting this feeling that they have life figured out, we start to feel, especially if we have some of this uncertainty, we start to feel like maybe there's something wrong with me. My friends, the people in my social circle, they all are not struggling with these problems. At least in social media, I see that they are doing well. So it creates this distance of an isolation that really makes you feel like you should, and creates this pressure that I was talking before about. You should have already figured out your life, which it's not necessarily true, but it can be one of the contributing factors. Another very contributing factor, I think it's really the world is changing very fast. And one of the reasons why the younger generation, specifically millennials, are facing this quarter life crisis more often, I think, is just because there's a generational gap. We were taught always that yeah, success means having good grades, going to a good university, finding a good job, having a stable income, and yeah, finding a partner, starting a family, buying a house, whatever. Of course, this is very generic, but and I don't know where you are listening from, so maybe you have a slightly different experience. But I think overall, we were sold a little bit of this vision from society of what we should be doing. And the truth is, as I alluded to before, this no longer having success on these terms. Maybe it was enough for past generations, but also because now we have this abundance of choice and we can see all the things that we could be doing. It's no longer enough, or it can no longer be enough for every person to feel like that is a life that brings them satisfaction. Maybe they want more out of life, and there's this ambition that I want a little bit more than only having these things of a family, a house, and of course these are important, a good job, but there's something missing still. And yeah, a little bit of this rebellion against this old idea of success can also be part of what triggers or what leads people to this quarter life crisis. And finally, but tied to this idea of this generational gap, is I would argue that most people had very unclear expectations about what their life would be after finishing education, after university. Because when we are childs and we are going through the education system, the expectations is clear. I finish this year, I go to the next one, I go to the next one. There's no real necessity to really think very deeply about what my life will be next year or next year, just because that's more or less structured already. And I think most people, because they were sold this idea that yeah, after university you get a job, you start a family, and then everything will fall into place, is they never really had a clear picture of what they would like to see in their lives in this period in their life. And so when they find themselves in this period, of course they don't have a clear picture of what success means to them, which then leads to this uncertainty because they really didn't know what they want. They just were going through the motions of what society or their family told them to do. And those contribute to this uncertainty, which therefore contributes to the emergence of this quarter life crisis. So, now what can we do about it if we find ourselves in such a situation? Of course, some of you that might be listening might have searched for this specific video because you heard this term and you feel like you need help because you are not sure about what you should be doing in this period. And of course, this is what I want to now do on this section of the video. But I also encourage anyone who might have stumbled upon this video but might not be resonating or might not be feeling like, yeah, this doesn't describe what I'm experiencing right now. Maybe I'm not needing to listen about this quarter life crisis because I don't feel I'm in one. If you are young, I would encourage you to still think about these things that I'm going to talk about, just because they do help. If you do like this homework beforehand, they do increase your chances that then when you get into the mid 20s, late 20s, when typically the quarter life crisis tends to happen for most people, you would already have some more clearer picture of what you want, and therefore this uncertainty that characterizes this period will not be as strong for you, and you might even avoid feeling this anxiety and this depression even that I mentioned is common for people experience this quarter life crisis. So just to start, I really want to tell you about, first thing is, when we are confused, we have ideas and thoughts revolving around in our minds, and we cannot really grasp them very well. So it feels overwhelming and it feels very confusing because in our minds we have these thoughts coming in and we are not sure what to do with them. And we have all these questions and we don't really have an answer to them. And my advice here would be really to don't keep your thoughts in your head. When you're feeling overwhelmed, and when you're feeling unsure, the first thing you should do is really take the thoughts out of your head and put it somewhere. Easy way to do this is to put them on paper, on a journal, something that I really encourage people to do, because see your head and your mind as a way to generate thoughts, but it's not a way to process them very well. It's a way that you have to clear your mind. You have to take away the thoughts that are lingering and put them somewhere. Put them in a journal, talk to a friend, and just let them out so they don't keep revolving around in your head and just creating more doubt and more uncertainty. So, first thing is really journal about these things. Write down how you're feeling, what you're thinking. Write down your emotions, and it really just helps distant yourself a little bit from these things and put things into perspective, which is important. Because when we are stuck in a situation, we are too deeply ingrained with it, we lose a little bit of perspective. And writing down on a journal allows you to see your own problem in an organized way, because when it's in your head it's not organized and it's jumping all the time from one thing to the other. When you write it down, just because the process of writing it down, it comes in a structured way, and when you then read it, um, it has to have a structure so you can more easily grasp what's important in this situation. So I really encourage people to write down. And another thing is really reach out to people, especially if you have a close group of friends that you trust and you feel comfortable and secure in, is really talk to them about these issues. And it's because most often than not, we really feel isolated, that we are the only ones experience these things, and most often than not this is not the case. Even the people that do look successful in social media, that friend of ours that is doing so well and is posting all these nice pictures on holidays in the Caribbean or wherever, if you do talk to him, he's going through periods of doubt in his life, maybe not towards his career, but some other areas. So it's normal for young adults to feel uncertainty and feel doubts just because they don't have such a long life experience to really know everything that they want to do with their life. So just engaging with other people in your life and just seeing that and bonding over the fact that, yeah, they are going through similar experiences. So it really helps you take a little bit of this pressure off yourself that you need to figure everything out, because truly no one does. Life is a learning process, is a process of discovery about yourself. If you ask people in their 50s or in their 60s, they will probably tell you there's a few things they still don't know what they should do or what they want out of life in some particular area. So it's always a process of uncovering. So take off this pressure that really you should have already figured out all these things. It's a process of uncovering. And the fact that you are thinking about these things, it really gives you the opportunity to start peeling a little bit of these layers and uncovering more and more. And of course, still on this idea of talking to other people and reaching out to people, is find help. We don't have to do all of these alone. And while journaling helps you structure and organize your thoughts and to really give you a new perspective, and talking to friends and family can also do that as well. Nowadays, it's fortunately not so stigmatized, the mental health, and you can find professional help from someone who has some experience in dealing with this, be it a psychologist, a therapist, or even a coach. And this is something that I often help people with, is just helping them figure out and go through these periods of their life where there's a lot of confusion. This is what gave the name to this channel and to my brand, which is Unraveled Mind. It's because in this period we feel like our thoughts is all congested and all mix jumbled together. And talking, and it's what I want for the people that I work with, and it's what I want for myself. It's really to start unraveling my mind and allow me to see things more clearly about what I want out of life, what a life is. So feel free to reach out to me or to anyone that's close that you think might be able to help you with this. Another points that I think are very important for us to consider in regards to the quarter life crisis, and this is one that's bittersweet to me because even I still have problems truly embracing this next point, which is accept the not knowing. And this is very difficult because I was always a good student in school, and that meant that I knew the right answers, and there was always a right answer in school. Whatever even when they tell you that there's no real right answer, but then in the test, if you don't do it the right way, they will penalize you. So I was always with this idea of there's a right answer. And at the beginning of my challenging periods, I was reading a lot because I was just hoping that I will find the right answer in this next book that will tell me what I should be doing. I can do this online course. And the truth is, it's normal not to know, and it's okay not to know, and you need to accept that there are a few questions that you do not know at this time. Doesn't mean that there are no answers, but most often than not, they will have to come from you at their own pace. And it's a process. It's not just finding the solution, it's uncovering the answer to a deep question like what do I want. This is more a process than just acquiring a solution. And this is the thing, is you really have to embrace this emotional discomfort of not knowing, because we are even biologically programmed that we should have the answers, because it's not safe if we don't know. If we don't know if there's dangerous animals, if we don't know which berries are poisonous or not, this can be dangerous. And also in school, we are also programmed that there you need to know the right answer, otherwise you're going to fail in the test or whatever circumstances in the school. It's a very competitive in the sense that there is this pressure to know. And when we are faced with a situation when we have to admit to ourselves and to other people that we don't know, that feels vulnerable. And this is something that I think it's very important in this process, is first to accept that I really don't know what do I want, or maybe I don't have a clear picture as I want to have about what I want. I don't really know what I like. I don't know what I expect out of life. And these are questions that are important. And the only way that you're really going to consider them, because they are emotionally discomforting to tackle if you don't already have an answer, is to accept that I don't know, but these questions are important and I want to consider them. And that leads me to the next point, which is be both curious and serious about your life. You need to first take full responsibility and ownership of your life, because as I said, in the past you were always dependent on your family, on your community around you, and therefore you were not 100% responsible for everything that you do. You always had to take into account what your parents wanted you to do and what your teachers wanted. So there was a lot of constraints, but now you are 100% responsible for the direction that your life takes. And especially if you live in a free country like Europe or America, this is one of the amazing things that we have in our society, is that we have this freedom. So take this freedom, and of course with it comes the responsibility that you are the one that's going to guide this. And in order for you to guide, then the important thing is you need to clarify really what you want and what you like. And that's important because it helps you then use this ownership of your life to steer it in the direction that you want to go, but do it in a curious way. So don't feel overwhelmed that, "Oh, god, I don't know what I want and what I like." Just be curious about it. So huh, as a child I always knew what I wanted even when I couldn't get it. As a child we are really in tune with what we want to do and what we like, and we are happy to express it. But as we grow up, I guess this feeling gets a little bit removed from us, and some of us are a little bit more reluctant now to admit what we want and what we like, because we are afraid of being judged by society, by our parents, by our friends. And the first thing is to be curious and ask yourself this question. Try new things, and if when you're really stuck and you don't know what you want, it's really explore, put yourself in new situations where you can experience new things, and then honestly reflect on them and think, did I like going to this new dance class? Did I enjoy starting to do some new hobby or whatever? Just expose yourself to new things, because that helps give you more data with which you can then clarify and converge on what is it that you want and what you like. Another very interesting exercise that I did, and there's actually an interesting book on this, which I think it's called Design Your Life, but I will put it in the description nevertheless. It's exactly that. It's an exercise where you design multiple life paths that you can take at this moment. And I remember when I did this, and remember designing three relatively clear life paths and thinking that, huh, both I'm unsure on how to live a good life and what I should be doing, but now I just decided three directions that I can go, and I can see that I would be satisfied in all of them. And this is something that really helps you take off this pressure that there is a right answer, there is a right path that I should be going, otherwise I will be miserable or I'll be unhappy. Because the truth is, nowadays, fortunately, there's a lot of things we could be doing. And just do this exercise for yourself. Just on a piece of paper, just do three columns, and then on the side, just put a up to five or such years. So one first year, second year, third year, fourth year, 5 year, and then three columns for three different life paths. And just imagine and design them fairly differently. Maybe in one you quit your job and you move to a different country and you do a lot of things very differently in your life. Maybe in the next job you keep more or less going in the direction that you are going, but of course with a realistic effort to make it into an enjoyable life. And maybe the third is, use your imagination and just really design your milestones of what would be interesting to happen in these three different life paths, and see, so what would I be feeling if I chose option A? What would happen if I chose option B? And see truly how maybe one of the life paths will be the clear choice for you. Maybe it will be like me, and all of them seem appealing, and that removes some of this pressure that, there's only one way. It's liberating to know that there's multiple ways, and of course then you can reflect and explore more to see which one is more aligned with you and your values and what you really want to experience in life, because that's what's important. When I say you take full responsibility for your life, is so that you can experience and live the life that you want. And finally, it's really ask yourself the three questions that I also asked myself when I was going through. And for more details, go to my previous video, which is the questions that they bring a lot of clarity and are a good starting point for you to then know what questions you need to ask then. And they were: why am I here? Where am I going? And is that where I want to go? And this was the questions that I repeatedly had in mind, and that from there I started uncovering more of the life that I now chose, that made also a nice turn, but I don't want to talk about it. For more details, as always, the video that I already did. And finally, the last advice slash tip I would encourage you to consider is really go easy on yourself. There's a lot of pressure from society, from family, to have all the answers. So don't add the pressure to have all the answers from yourself as well. Go easy on yourself. It's normal not to have all the answers, and give yourself the time. It's life is worth taking seriously, and for you to take seriously, of course, you have to consider what is really important to you. And this is a process of uncovering. I wish that in the future these things are addressed earlier and in education, and children and teenagers going through the education system, they will be encouraged to reflect on these things and to really help define what they want out of life and create these clear visions for themselves. But unfortunately, most likely, if you're experiencing this, no one did this to you. No one ever told you who do you want to be. Everyone was just asking you what do you want to do, which I find very interesting. It's just all the people in our past just asking us what do you want to do when you grow up, as we're reinforcing this idea that your career is going to be the main defining factor. And now just start asking yourself the question that you should have been asked in the past: is who do you want to be? And that's the question that in the end will reveal. And when you finally are able to answer that question and be satisfied with the answer, that's when the quarter life crisis starts to dissipate, and you start to enjoy the new chapter of your life, which is still, fortunately, because we are at a quarter life crisis, is still very long, and allows us the time to use whatever we learn in this process to go forward. So I will end it here. Thank you so much for listening. And I just want to give you a quick reminder, if you haven't, to go check out my previous video where I go through my experience. Also, check out the Serena Kim video about also the quarter life crisis that I really enjoyed. So I once again, I'm not being paid. I don't even know her, but I just enjoy this video, and I think would be helpful for anyone wanting to learn more about the quarter life crisis. And finally, just give it a like, subscribe if you like this video, give me some feedback, tell me what you think. And hopefully I will look forward to coming back to you next week with some new topic.